And Vance says, if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing out Europe again. To which Hegseth replies, VP, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic, capital letters. So a really unvarnished view for European leaders about what the top officials in the United States really think.
Let's head into the Trump dump now with Harriet Alexander of The Times, who joins us. Evening, Harriet.
Hi, Kate.
Thanks so much for being with us. Can we dive straight into the story that's starting to peak up and show some presence on most of the major news sites at the moment, Harriet? And I'd love to go into more detail with you on it. And this is the story of a journalist, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, basically writing a detailed account in his publication about an invite that he got to the encrypted messaging app Signal. It was from an account labelled White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and it turned out that Signal group then contained what appears to be the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, the Defence Secretary, J.D. Vance in there as well, Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence. I mean, absolutely extraordinary, because it wasn't just the fact that he was on this group, it was what the group also discussed.
Right, yeah. So Jeffrey Goldberg, who wrote this article, he said that when he was first contacted on March the 11th by Mike Waltz, he just assumed that it was a hoax. He said he was hopeful that maybe it was the real Mike Waltz, but he didn't know. But then what unfolded was kind of beyond his wildest dreams, it's safe to say, because Goldberg was then added to this group, which had very detailed planning and discussions about whether to launch airstrikes against the Houthis in Yemen. And the conversations were quite remarkable. There's screenshots of them. And the National Security Council has confirmed that this is in fact true. It's authentic. It's unbelievable that a journalist was mistakenly added to this group of absolute top-level figures.
The highest ranking was J.D. Vance, the vice president, of course. And what we understand, I mean, it's fascinating. There's a lot to dig into here, and I'm just starting to get into the detail of it. But what we understand is that the vice president, you know, normally absolutely in line with Donald Trump about comments on foreign policy, but in the private discussions, he said that the US was making a mistake by taking military action. He was concerned how that would affect Europe. Where the Houthis operate is hugely important to European trade, not so much to the US. Affect their danger to American trade minimal. But he seemed to be quite concerned about Europe.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, of course, in public, J.D. Vance is absolutely in lockstep with Donald Trump. And yet in this private chat, Vance says, I'm not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with the message on Europe right now. So Vance is essentially saying he's not really in support of the airstrikes against the Houthis, which actually did go ahead on March the 15th. But then there's a really interesting bit, Kate, where Pete Hegseth says, no, we should go ahead with this. And Vance says, if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing out Europe again. To which Hegseth replies, VP, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic, capital letters. So a really unvarnished view for European leaders about what the top officials in the United States really think.
What's been the reaction to this over in the States? Because it's sort of not long emerged as a story, has it, Harriet? I was, reading the full account from the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic as I came to air, Jeffrey Goldberg. But I wonder how officials in the United States have been reacting to it.
Well, Donald Trump was asked about this a little while ago in the White House for a separate meeting, and he claimed that he had no idea what the reporter was asking about. He said he hadn't heard of this Atlantic story, didn't know anything about it. But actually, in DC, this has caused, I suppose, an awful lot of face palms, but also shock. And, some members of Congress are saying that this is really quite outrageous. Democrats have said that heads must roll, and Republicans have even said that there needs to be a serious look at how this was allowed to happen.
I mean, it is extraordinary. We've heard from the Democrats as well. They've been pretty absent from a lot of conversations, but obviously they've jumped on this one. It'll be interesting to see how this continues to play out. But really extraordinary security breach. I'm sure that there'll be some tellings off. Okay, let's move on from that. And what have we got time for? Let's talk a little bit about tariffs, because here's Donald Trump at his cabinet meeting earlier announcing tariffs on companies that buy oil and gas from Venezuela.
We've been ripped off by every country in the world, friend and foe. We were taken advantage of like nobody's ever seen. And you saw what happened today with Venezuela. We did something with Venezuela, which is long in the making, and it's very substantial. And we'll be announcing cars very shortly. And we already announced steel, as you know. And if we have problems like wars or anything else, we need steel, we need pharmaceuticals, we need aluminum, we need a lot of these things.
Yeah, this is a secondary tariff, isn't it, basically, Harriet?
Yeah, this is very different from the other ones, and it has to be said, it's certainly raised some eyebrows. So Venezuela, of course, has the world's largest oil reserves. Trump has said now that he wants to put a 25% tariff on countries which buy Venezuelan oil. And that is something that is a bit sort of perplexing, really, because Venezuela has just agreed to take flights, deportation flights of migrants sent from the United States. So on the one hand, the Maduro government is playing ball, is doing what Trump wants them to do, and yet he seems to be punishing them and going after them. So it's sort of a slightly strange timing with that one, I'd say.
But also, how's he going to impose this? He's basically talking about having sight of anyone who buys oil and gas from Venezuela, and then how does he place that 25% tariff on them?
Yes, yeah, it's going to be complicated to implement, and it's a strange one as well, because it's Chevron, the US company, which is operating in Venezuela. There's been a lot of backwards and forwards over whether it should be allowed to operate in Venezuela. That has resumed because the Biden administration decided that the previous restrictions weren't really helping, that it was the Venezuelan people that were suffering. So Trump sort of seems to be going backwards and forwards, but he's going backwards and forwards on this, Kate, as he is with the other tariffs. He was asked about tariffs. He says that April the 2nd is the day that they will come in. He calls it Liberation Day. But again, he was kind of equivocating somewhat on what those tariffs might be. So a lot of people are in limbo waiting to see what that will all really mean.
OK, let's talk portraits. There's two that we need to talk about today. One is a portrait given by Vladimir Putin to Donald Trump. It's been described as a personal gift by Russia. We don't know any more details about it. And the other is a portrait of Donald Trump that he says is truly the worst. And it's a purposefully distorted portrait of the US president hanging in the Colorado state capitol. Tell us about them.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump seized on this portrait at the weekend. I'd advise listeners to go and have a look at it. I mean, it's not
that bad.
It's not atrocious. No, I mean, it's perhaps not. So Trump put it on social media alongside the photo which he has chosen, which people said was perhaps somewhat enhanced, which is basically like his mugshot of him sort of glaring into the camera. So that's the one he's chosen as his official portrait, very different from his previous official photo, which was much more smiley and lighter. The current official photo is pretty intense. And yeah, he seized on this portrait done by a British artist, actually, Sarah Boardman. She's based in Colorado Springs. She did this portrait back in 2019. So it's a bit unclear why Trump has suddenly got a bee in his bonnet about it now. But she seems fairly unfussed. She said, he will just go on the wall with other presidents, and that's all he will be at the end of the day.
He said that a portrait by the same artist, Sarah Boardman, of the former US President Barack Obama was wonderful. And he said, he basically mused that his was so bad because she must have lost her talent as she got older, which is pretty damning and unacceptable to say, really. There you go. Not that bad, Donald. I can't think why he's distorted, apart from he's got quite a thick neck. I mean, that is the only thing that I can offer up, Harriet.
Yeah, a little bit jowly. It's perhaps not
Yes.
the most flattering of portraits, but it's not on the same scale as, if you remember, that Cristiano Ronaldo sculpture, which was just magnificent.
The statue is horrendous. Yeah.
Yes, it's not in the same league, it's safe to say.
Always great to speak to you. Thank you so much. Harriet Alexander, they're working for The Times over in the States. You can read Harriet and her colleagues at thetimes.com with your digital subscription. Thanks, Harriet. Good to speak to you.